بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So today is Wednesday, alhamdulillah, and of course on Wednesdays we have two programs. We start with the Q&A program, and around 6:30 or so we will inshallah go live to have the summary of the next two juz of the Quran. Yesterday we did 10 and 11. Today inshallah we will do juz number 12 and juz 13. So before starting the Q&A, inshallah, we will just announce the winner of yesterday's question and the answer, and then read out the question for tomorrow. So the questions were of three parts. One was the first to migrate with his family because of his religion after Lut alayhi salatu wassalam, to migrate with his whole family, and who was that? So the answer of that was Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu ta'ala an. Second question, the first to expand and change the structure of the roof of Masjid al-Nabawi from palm tree leaves to wood to protect the masjid from rain. That was also Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu ta'ala an. And the third question was, who used to proudly say that I am the son of two Khalifas? The answer to that is Zayd ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala an. So Zayd ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab, you could say, he was not only the son of Umar ibn al-Khattab, or he used to say that because Ali radiallahu ta'ala was actually considered his grandfather as well, because of the marriage that occurred between Umar and Kulthum radiallahu ta'ala anha. So the winner of yesterday was brother Ryan Noah. Ryan Noah was the winner of yesterday's question. There was only one correct answer, so he receives the $25 gift card. The question for tomorrow is, what is the meaning of Taghut in the Quran? The word Taghut. And who is Ar-Raqub as the Prophet ﷺ defined? So these are the two questions for tomorrow. You have until noon to answer. They will be posted again on Facebook. Send your answers to islamstl63011@gmail.com. Once again, the correct answers will all be drawn out randomly, and the winner will be given the $25 gift card, inshallah. Okay, so that being said, let's move on to the questions. We received, alhamdulillah, several questions once again during the past week. The first question that we had, quite a few of them have to do with zakah, because a lot of people are paying their zakah at this particular time. So the first question that arose was, what is the zakah on a 401k? Many people have zakah on this, so what is the zakah for that? Okay, so this is a contemporary issue, as we know, and there are actually three opinions that are given by ulama with regard to this. One is the opinion which is the most cautious opinion, that is that even though the 401k money is not accessible to you at the moment, but whatever you have in your 401k, if it is not burdensome upon you, pay the full zakah upon it, right? So whatever you have in there, pay zakah fully upon it. That is the most cautious view, and if somebody can afford to do that, if they have a lot of excess wealth, then that is the best stance to take. The second stance that's mentioned by the ulama is to pay zakah on what would be accessible to you today. So we know that 401k, the wealth comes to you only when you reach a certain age, and if you decide to take out that wealth early beforehand, then you have to pay a large fee, right? A penalty fee or whatever else it may be. So whatever would be accessible to you now at the time, minus out the penalty fee, pay zakah upon that. That is the second opinion that's mentioned. The third opinion that's mentioned is to, every year you put down, you jot down how much you have. You keep track of it, keep a record of it, how much you have in your 401k, and then calculate 2.5% of that every single year. right? So then, and then put a final dollar amount on that. And then every year you calculate that. So, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lets you live to that particular age, and then you are able to access that full amount at the time when you reach that particular age, then at that time, whatever you add up to that point, pay zakah upon the whole total at that particular moment. So these are the three opinions that are given in that regard. So, whichever one is the easiest opinion that you can follow, these are all three opinions of ulama that are given. So, of course, the recommended is always to take the most caution, but it's understandable that, some people may have a lot in there and they may not be able to pay full zakah upon it because of the difficulty that they have in what is accessible, what they have on hand with them. So that is the answer to that question. Second question is, you stated, meaning I stated, that zakah can be given both locally as well as globally, but it has to be given to Muslims. Yes, that is true. I did say that. And if I have given to local food banks with the intention of zakah, will it not count? Also, organizations, for example, such as Helping Hand or Islamic Relief, have on their website that they help those in need regardless of religion, but they collect zakah too. So please clarify. So that's part one of the question. Part two, is zakah due on the money or assets that you have with you currently, or on money that you have had for a full year? I am getting different amounts when using online calculators. So the answer to the first part of the question is that if you give to local food banks, we have to remember that local food banks, most of the time, what do? They provide food to both Muslims as well as non-Muslims, number one. Number two, those who are getting food from the food banks, regardless of religion. However, when it comes to zakah, again, I don't work for these organizations, so I don't know for sure, but my assumption is that if it's zakah money, they'll keep that aside in a separate account, and they will use that specifically to help Muslims who are eligible for zakah. That's my guess, and that's what I assume. But what I say you should do is contact these organizations and ask them exactly how they use the zakah money to be 100% sure. That's the way that they should do it. The second question on it is that zakah is due upon what you have on the day that zakah is due. So if you had that wealth throughout the year and now your day of zakah has come, you have to pay zakat on that. So now, for example, say that your zakat date is the 15th of Ramadan and you pay zakat on that day every single year. So say on the 14th of Ramadan, you received a check for $10,000. Say somebody gave you $10,000. Now, just because you received it one day before, you have to include that in your zakat payment because you received it a day before the zakat date that you had. Now, let's take the other opposite example. Say on the 14th of Ramadan, you went to the car dealer and you bought yourself a $50,000 car, right? And you paid cash $50,000 for that. Now, on the 15th of Ramadan, when you're calculating your zakah, you obviously minus out that $50,000 because it has already been spent, and you don't pay zakah on a car because that's something which you use for a personal use, and it's not cars are not something which you include in your zakah payment unless it's a car that you have that is for sale. So that is the answer to that. That's what zakah is due upon, the money and the assets that you have currently on the day that your zakat is due. Next question is a question on zakah calculation. The question is that I calculate my zakah on the 10th of Ramadan every year. This year I received a bonus in March 2020. In June, I will be paying my child's medical school fees, which is 2 times the amount I received as a bonus. So the question is, shall I deduct the total amount of fee from the zakat calculation, or deduct only the amount that I have received this year, or pay on what I have in my account today? So we have to remember, when it comes to zakah, and this is actually a good question because a lot of people get confused on this. Zakah, you can only deduct your zakah payment on that which is pending. So now, for example, if your zakah payment is due on the 15th of Ramadan, and say that you already have your statement from your Visa card or your MasterCard saying that you have to pay this much for your next credit card bill, right? Or whatever it may be. Or you have another bill that you have the statement for and you've already paid that. It's part of your debt. So now in that case, you can minus out that particular debt. But any type of fee that's a pending fee, that is a potential fee for the future, for those types of things, you cannot minus that out. Because again, between now and between then, who knows what may happen? Allahu a'lam what may happen. Inshallah, everyone will be good and remain safe. But you don't know what's going to happen between now and between that particular time when you pay that. Now, if you have the statement in hand from the school saying that you owe this and the bill is pending, then in that case, you can minus it out. But if you don't, then it's considered a potential. So another example for that is if somebody says, okay, I plan to go for Hajj at the end of the year or whatever, but my zakat is due now, but I plan to go for Hajj. So I'm setting this aside, perhaps, if I can do that. Now, in that case, you cannot say that this is for Hajj because you haven't paid. Now, if you've already paid that money for Hajj, you've already organized everything and whatnot, then in that case, you can do it. But if there's only an intention at the time and you still haven't paid for it since it's potential, then in that case, you cannot minus it from your zakat payment. Next question is, okay, of course, we don't mention any names here, so this is very general. My husband's khala, or my husband's mother's sister, her husband had passed away last year, and they don't have any income at the moment. The khala has 2 kids that are in college right now. The khala has some gold, and she is not willing to sell it. But are the kids zakah eligible? We were planning to give some zakat to the children. So the answer to that is, number one, if the kids are not working, they don't have wealth to themselves that's equivalent to nisab, then yes, they are eligible for zakah since they are mature and they are baligh and they can be given zakah, especially now in the case where they're going to college and of course they're going to be paying college fees and tuition, so they can be given zakah by the family. That's number one. The second part of the question is that when we give zakah to anyone, are we supposed to tell them that this is zakah money, or can we just give it to them as a gift? So the answer is you don't have to let the people know that it's zakah. You can just give it to them as a gift, and it can be considered zakah as long as you have the niyyah and the intention that this is zakah that you are giving to them. Next question is, I'm going to start my first job in the US in August 2020. Therefore, I want to get your advice regarding a 401k retirement account. Is it permissible to invest in this account or no? So my answer to this is that if the company that you're working for voluntarily does it for you without you giving anything from your side, they're doing it from a company behalf, then it's considered a gift from the company and you can accept whatever comes out for that, number one. But if you have the choice to do it yourself from your wealth, from your money that you make from the company, my answer is to abstain from it because the company may be investing in those types of companies or shares that are haram, yani haram companies that engaged with impermissible things. So my advice to those people is that if you want to save for a retirement account or whatever, do it independently. Use your money that you earn from your company and invest independently by yourself so that you have control where to invest when it comes to these types of things. Next question is about zakah on large loans. So number one is, I read some sources that say a year has to pass on money before zakah is due upon it. Is it true? And the second part of the question, I have a credit card bill that is scheduled to be paid in the middle of Ramadan. So do I calculate my zakah before or after this bill is paid? So for question number 2, part 2, we already answered that just a little while ago. Since it is pending to be paid in the middle of Ramadan, then in that case, you can minus that out from your zakah payment since it is a pending payment, as I had already said. For number 1, that some say that a year has to pass on money before zakah is due on it. Is it true? So yes, this is another thing that some people don't understand, that it's only when a person goes completely broke that they will begin calculating a new zakah date from when they have the nisab in their possession once again. Otherwise, if they have some money and it fluctuates from above to below nisab. So let me give you an example. Say the first time a person was ever eligible to give zakah, say when they were 15 years old, they have $1,000, right? Or whatever it may be. Now, and say that $1,000, they had it in their possession on the 1st of Ramadan. So that basically means now they have to maintain that for an entire year. Then the next year on the 1st of Ramadan, if they have that nisab amount, then zakah will be due. Now, in this whole year that occurs, if the money that they have in their possession fluctuates above the nisab or below the nisab. So say at one point they had $2,000, $3,000. Now they spent some money and now they have only $100. So they're not completely broke, but they still have some money in their possession. In that case, as long as the next year on the 1st of Ramadan, they have the nisab amount in their possession, zakah will be due upon them. Now, sometime in the middle of the year, if they go completely broke and they don't have anything, they have $0, they have nothing in their name. Now, in that case, from the next time that they actually have the amount of nisab in their possession, they will start calculating a new year from that time. And then they will pay zakah 1 year after that, as long as they maintain that. So it's kind of hard to understand from what you say, but that is what the ruling is with regards to that. Okay, next question. In Dhuhr and Asr Salah in congregation, people don't recite anything in their heart. Only the Imam does. And I heard that the Imam does recite in the heart, but people behind also do. So what is the correct way? Because someone is saying that if that's the case, then why pray in congregation when everyone can recite on their own? Please help me understand this. So now there's a difference of opinion in this regard. In the Hanafi perspective, yes, in all prayers, whether they're silent or loud prayers, the muqtadi, the one who is behind the imam, will remain quiet, will remain silent in the time where Surah Fatiha and the surah are recited. There are other scholars who say that it is recited behind the imam as well, right? So that's something. In the Ahnaf, they say that, first of all, the principle is that the recitation of the imam is sufficient for the follower, number one. Number two, the Quranic verse says, وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. That when the Quran is being recited, then listen to it and remain silent so that the mercy of Allah may descend upon you. So those are the two things that the Ahnaf say. Now, the second part of the question that says, why pray in congregation when everyone can recite on your own, if that's the case? Now, we know, of course, that congregational prayer is superior to praying alone. And this is from the many ahadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam that we can see. So when we see the hadith clearly saying that congregational prayer is 25 to 27 times superior than praying alone, then that is what we follow when it comes to that. So that's pretty simple at the end of the day. Okay, what is the right age to train kids to fast? So the answer to this is that we know for Salah, for example, there's the famous hadith in Tirmidhi which says that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, teach a child to pray from the age of 7, at the age of 7, to start teaching them. And then at the age of 10, if they are not praying, then reprimand them in that particular case. Because it's so important when a child reaches the age of puberty, we have to remember that that is the time where they become responsible for their actions and for their deeds. And from that point onwards, that is when a person must pray their salah. They must be fasting in Ramadan and so on. So I would say that it's important to begin at a gradual stage. When they're 7 years old or 8 years old, tell them to fast for 4 hours or 5 hours, whatever they can do, whatever they can accomplish, and then try to move up a little bit. Then the next year, move up maybe a couple of hours, whatever they can do, and build up slowly. Try to have some system in place for the kids, like a reward system. If you fast every day, when you fast, we'll give you a surprise or we'll give you something, right? Encourage them in that case. Give them the spirit of Ramadan. But don't pressure them, ease them into it. That's something which is important, so that inshallah by the time they reach the age of puberty, they are ready to do that. Okay, can we perform any qada salah like Fajr or Dhuhr at Asr prayer time? And when should Asr prayer end? At most, should it be like 20 minutes before Maghrib or earlier that time? Please advise. So, yes, qada salah can be prayed after Asr prayer because qada is a necessary prayer, right? It's those nawafil that are considered makruh to pray after Salatul Asr. But anything that is a qada, you can pray that after Asr prayer. And it is recommended from the fiqh books when the sun starts becoming pale before the time of sunset, which is, you can say, about 20 minutes or so, 15-20 minutes maybe before the Asr prayer, it is makruh then to pray the Asr, to delay it until that late. Now, if a person has not prayed their Asr, even if there's 5 minutes to go for Maghrib and they have to pray Asr, then still obviously they should pray their Asr Salah at that time. But it is makruh to unnecessarily delay the Asr that late. Okay, we have always heard that we cannot perform any Salah like 2 rakah, like Nafil or anything after the Witr Salah. But what about the 2 Nafil that comes after Witr Salah? So for example, the rakahs that are mentioned, the 4 Sunnah, 4 Farad, 2 Sunnah, then 2 Nafil, then 3 rakah Witr, and then the 2 rakah Nafil that come after. So what about this 2 rakah of Nafil that come after the Witr prayer? Can we perform that? And what's the minimum amount of rakah we must perform at Isha? So answering the second part first, the minimum amount of rakah that are performed at Isha are of course the 4 Farad, and then the 2 rakah Sunnah Mu'akkada that come after the Farad, and then the Witr prayer, the 3 rakahs of Witr. So the 9 rakahs altogether are the minimal that are performed at this time of Isha. With regards to the 2 rakah, of salah that come after witr prayer that are mentioned. Now, there are numerous reports in the ahadith that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he prayed 2 rak'ah of salah after the witr prayer. For example, the narration of Aisha radiallahu anha, which comes in Abu Dawood, that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would pray 2 rak'ah salah after the witr. Now, there are other reports that seem to indicate that this is not correct. For example, the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, which is in Bukhari, that says that make the last of your prayers in the night the witr prayer, for verily Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam has commanded this. Right, so now this hadith appears to indicate to us when you just read it that nothing at all should be performed or prayed right after the witr salah is done, in order to keep the witr prayer as the final prayer of the night. Now the scholars, they had differed about how to reconcile these two ahadith above, right, that I had just said. So some of them said that the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar is a report of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam's regular practice, and therefore it is what should be followed. That is, that one should not pray anything after the witr prayer. And those scholars who say that opinion, they explain the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha by saying that praying 2 rak'ah after witr was something that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam only did a few times in order to show that it is permissible to do so. Right? So, however, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, according to them, they say that he never intended to do it as a regular practice. So that is the explanation preferred by scholars such as Imam Nawawi rahmatullahi alayhi, who we know is the great scholar who wrote the Sharh of Sahih Muslim. Now, however, when we go to the other side, other scholars rejected that explanation because the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha uses the word kana. And the word kana, when it's in a hadith about the practice, it according to many of the scholars, it actually indicates something which was a regular practice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you can say the wording of the hadith indicates that praying the 2 rak'ah after witr salah was the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's regular practice, right? And there are scholars like Ala Ma'ini rahmatullahi alayhi. He states in his Sharh of Sunan Abi Dawood that this is the matter and this is the case. In addition to that, some scholars also explain that the 2 rak'ah after witr are considered part of the witr prayer. This is what some say, yani it is connected to it, just as the 2 rak'ah of sunnah after the farad of maghrib are considered a part of the maghrib prayer. That is just one of the opinions that's out there in that sense. So if we understand it in that way, then we can reconcile between these two hadith, because praying 2 rak'ahs after the witr prayer, according to the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, still keeps witr as the last prayer of the night, according to the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma. So they basically say that 1 rak'ah is witr because that is an odd number, and then the 2 rak'ahs that make it 3 witr become a part of that. But that's more of a lesser opinion in the Hanafi madhab. It's that the 2 rak'ah that come after the witr prayer are separate from the 3 rak'ah. So now, in the Hanafi madhab, when you look at Imam Muhammad rahmatullahi alayhi, who is the great student of Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi, he states that a person should pray as much nafil as he wishes after the witr prayer, and this does not invalidate the witr prayer. This is the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi. So that's mentioned in that particular aspect. So if anyone prays 2 rak'ah or however many number of rak'ah afterwards, then of course they can do so. Now, people who pray 3 rak'ah witr of Isha before sleeping, maybe they feel like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to get up for tahajjud. Now they get up for tahajjud. They don't say that, okay, I prayed my witr, so now I can't pray tahajjud in the last portion of the night. No. Of course you can get up and you can still pray tahajjud at that particular time. Okay, last question is, what is the protocol for istikhara, for salatul istikhara? So the protocol for istikhara is, number 1, that 2 rak'ah of salah is prayed, and it is prayed at any time where it is not disliked. So you don't pray it after Fajr Salah or after Asr Salah. There are some ulama who do give the opinion that istikhara can be prayed any time as well. There are some that give that opinion. But it's preferred to recite Surah Kafirun in the first rak'ah. In the second rak'ah, it's preferred to recite Surah Ikhlas. And after one is done with the 2 rak'ah salah, then you recite the dua, Allahumma inni astakhiruka bi'ilmika wa astaqdiruka biqudratika wa as'aluka min fadlika al-azim fa innaka taqdiru wa la aqdiru wa ta'lamu wa la a'lamu wa anta a'lamul ghuyub, and so on and so forth. This is a bit of a long dua. You recite the dua of istikhara, which is well known. And then after that's done, what do you do, right? So looking for the signs, what do you do for that? One should suspend one's own judgment or inclination about the particular matter at hand that they're doing istikhara for, and they should wait for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show a sign or to make things happen in a way that indicates towards that particular aspect. So when one is not clear about the result of istikhara, the fuqaha, the scholars of fiqh, they mention that it is recommended to repeat the istikhara up to 7 times if necessary. And there are some ulama who do say that the more one does istikhara, then the more clear the answer becomes for them. Some may see a sign after 1 time, some may see a sign after 7 times. Allahu a'lam. And another thing that is a misconception of istikhara is that you have to see a dream after doing istikhara. It's not necessary that you see a dream, that you get a dream or even a feeling, right? Rather, the istikhara is a prayer that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides you towards that which is best for you, which has khair in it for you. If you do the prayer of guidance with the proper manners, the most important of which is to truly consign the matter to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself and to suspend your own inclinations, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself then will make the events unfold in the direction which is best for you, for your worldly affairs as well as the affair of the akhirah. And ulama even say that if one is unable to offer salah and they need counsel and they need guidance, that even when it is not possible to perform the salah itself, then it is recommended to simply read the dua itself. So for example, when women are in the state of hayd, when they're in their period and they cannot pray salah, then in that case you can just merely read the dua itself and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his guidance about a matter at hand. So some of the misconceptions are, some people say that istikhara is a prayer only when you're seeking marriage, right? That's a misconception. Number 2, the signs come in form of a dream. That's a misconception. Number 3, another misconception is that a sinful person should ask a pious person to do istikhara on their behalf. That's also a misconception. Remember, this is between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if a person is sinful, they prayed this 2 rak'ah of prayer, you're asking Allah for his help. He will show you the way as well. And misconception number 4 is that istikhara is only for big decisions and not small matters. There are so many narrations about the great scholars of the past who used to make istikhara even for smaller matters that they had. So that is something that we have to remember as well when it comes to istikhara prayer. Okay, so that ends the Q&A for today. Just remember again, those who have questions, send an email to mufti, M-U-F-T-I, at islamstl.org, and we'll try to answer as many as we can on Wednesdays, inshallah. We already, alhamdulillah, did the announcement for the winner of the question yesterday. Tomorrow's question was also mentioned. It will be put on Facebook, inshallah, so remember to research and answer that. We will end the Q&A over there, inshallah, in about half an hour, about 6:30. We will come live and we will do the next 2 juz of the summaries. Jazakallahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.